How often have you mistaken confession for connection? How many times have you laid the pages of your inner world on a table for another to skim, believing that this act of offering would be the final key, the ultimate gesture to unlock a reciprocal devotion? You spoke of old wounds as if narrating their history would sanctify them. You displayed vulnerability like a badge of honor, a proof of your complex humanity. And yet, the predictable arc unfolded, a moment of intense attention, a fleeting sense of closeness, then the slow, quiet withdrawal. You were not met with reverence, but with a subtle shift in energy. You became known. And what is fully known, in the brutal economy of human fascination, often loses its charge. You were a landscape fully mapped, a song deciphered, a mystery solved in a single sitting. The volume was closed and placed upon a shelf, its conclusion understood, its spines no longer holding the promise of an unread chapter. This is not an indictment of your heart, but a dissection of a fundamental miscalculation. You were educated in a dialect of transparency. You were taught that to be real is to be revealed, that authenticity is synonymous with emotional exposition. But this lens misses a darker, more ancient truth about the nature of influence and desire. What is given without restraint is often absorbed without awe. What is explained in full is frequently valued in part. There is a profound power in the withheld, a magnetic tension in the undefined. This exploration is not for those seeking comfort in old paradigms. It is for those prepared to examine the architecture of their own presence, to rebuild it not as an open house, but as a temple with a secure inner sanctum. We are about to traverse principles that distinguish the one who petitions from the one who possesses authority. The one whose energy leaks from every seam from the one who administers his presence like a rare element, releasing measured particles that command attention, shape climates, and forge bonds not of pity, but of profound investment. Today, we shift the axis. Today, we examine the foundations of genuine sovereignty. Consider this first principle, the power of the unspoken. The most compelling force you possess is not in your story, but in the silence that surrounds it. When you articulate every nuance of your past, every motivation for your present, you perform a peculiar magic trick. You make yourself disappear. You replace the living, breathing enigma of a person with a fixed case study. The human psyche is not drawn to solved equations. It is drawn to elegant questions. It invests in puzzles, in gentle contradictions, in the sense that there are depths below the visible surface. Your history, your traumas, your triumphs, they are not badges to be worn on your chest for quick identification. They are the private geology of your soul, the strata that give you weight, but which need not be displayed in a public museum. By allowing a sliver of your foundation to suggest a vast, unseen structure, you create a gravitational pull. People lean in. They listen more intently to your pauses than to your proclamations. They project onto the canvas of your quietude their own curiosity, their own narrative longing. In this space, you are not defined by a tale you've already told. You are continuously redefined by their engaged imagination. You cease to be a person they have figured out and become a presence they are trying to understand. This is not deception. It is the highest form of self-possession. It is understanding that your totality is a treasure, and a treasure is not left unguarded in the town square. It is kept secure, its value inferred by the strength of its vault and the dignity of its keeper. If this perspective is already shifting something within you, consider subscribing. What follows will delve deeper into reconstructing your presence from the inside out. This leads us to a second, closely related principle, strategic opacity. This is the conscious cultivation of a persona that cannot be instantly cataloged. It is the practice of responding to a question without fully answering it. It is the art of revealing a facet while implying the existence of 100 others. Think of it not as building a wall, but as mastering the play of light and shadow. A figure standing in a doorway, backlit, is far more arresting and memorable than the same figure under the fluorescent glare of an office. The details are obscured, but the silhouette is powerful, suggestive. In interaction, this translates to a calibrated disclosure. When asked about a personal difficulty, one might say, "I've navigated challenges that taught me the value of resilience," rather than launching into a 5-minute biographical drama. The former statement establishes strength, experience, and depth. The latter often invites either unsolicited analysis or a quiet, subconscious categorization of you as the person with that problem. Strategic opacity is self-defense for the soul. It filters the world. It ensures that only those willing to invest genuine time and perceptive energy earn the right to a clearer view. The casual observer receives the impression of substance. The truly interested is compelled to embark on a longer, more respectful journey of discovery. You train people how to approach you. You establish, through your own composed reserve, that your inner world is not a free-access park, but a private gallery requiring an invitation. Share this with someone who is tired of feeling emotionally disposable. The journey into self-command is a path best walked with awareness. Now, let us confront the tyranny of immediacy. We live in an age of digital instantaneity, and this has bled into our psychological expectations. There is an unspoken pressure to be perpetually available, to respond to every ping as if it were a summons, to fill every silence with noise lest we be forgotten. This constant reactivity is a silent killer of presence and power. It communicates one thing above all else, that your time, your focus, your mental real estate is cheap and on permanent standby. True authority is rooted in a different rhythm. It is rooted in the deliberate management of attention. When you respond to every message in seconds, you abdicate control of the tempo. You place the other person's whims at the center of your clock. But when you introduce a pause, not as a game, but as a natural consequence of being immersed in your own purposeful life, you recalibrate the entire dynamic. That pause is pregnant with meaning. It suggests a life offline that is full, engaging, and demanding of your presence. It makes your eventual response, when it comes, a choice, not a reflex. It is valued because it was not instantly extracted. This principle is not about playing hard to get. It is about being genuinely engaged with a reality that does not orbit around a single point of external validation. Your time becomes a non-renewable resource you guard, and thus, when you give it, it is perceived as a gift, not an entitlement. The person who is never in a hurry, who is never anxiously awaiting a reply, is the person who owns the moment. They are not pulled by the current. They are the deep, still water that determines the flow around them. Comment tempo below if you felt the drain of constant availability. From this mastery of rhythm, we move to the architecture of value. There is a profound and often uncomfortable law of human psychology. We invest in what requires investment. We cherish what costs us effort, time, and focus. A relationship, a connection, an object of desire that is effortlessly, constantly available often sinks into the background of the mind. It becomes part of the furniture of existence, comfortable, perhaps, but rarely inspiring awe or active pursuit. This is the fatal flaw in the strategy of perpetual accommodation. When you make yourself endlessly understanding, endlessly available, endlessly agreeable, you remove all friction, all challenge, all cost from the interaction with you. You become a psychological free commodity. And the human mind, wired for survival and problem-solving, does not allocate precious resources to what is free and plentiful. It allocates resources to what is intriguing, elusive, and rewarding to obtain. This is why a degree of healthy tension, of self-contained independence, is not just attractive but essential. It is the resistance that makes the emotional muscle grow. It is the space between your presence and another's need that allows genuine longing to breathe. By having a core that is not negotiable, by having pursuits that are not abandoned for every external demand, by having a silence that is not desperate to be filled, you establish a cost. To be in your sphere, to earn your consistent attention, requires something of the other person: respect, effort, curiosity. You stop being a pond that is always easily accessible and become a deep well. People must bring their own bucket, their own rope, and their own willingness to lower it down. The water they draw then tastes infinitely sweeter, not because it is different water, but because the act of drawing it has meaning. Like this, if you're recognizing the difference between being convenient and being consequential. Finally, we arrive at the principle of reflective presence. The ultimate power in any interaction often lies not in what you reveal, but in what you elicit. The most influential individuals are not necessarily the loudest storytellers. They are often the most profound listeners, the most adept at holding up a mirror. When you resist the impulse to fill airspace with your own narrative, you create a vacuum that naturally pulls the world toward you. You ask a piercing question, and then you hold the silence that follows. You reflect a person's own statement back to them in a slightly refined form, allowing them to hear their own truth or their own contradiction through a new filter. In this mode, you become a catalyst for their own self-discovery. They walk away from an interaction with you not necessarily knowing more about you, but feeling profoundly seen and understood by you. And this feeling, this sensation of being truly perceived, is one of the most potent and addictive forces in human experience. You create loyalty not by demanding it, but by being the rare individual who provides the clarity of a calm, reflective surface. Your mystery remains intact, even heightened, because you have given them the gift of their own reflection. They are not focused on deciphering you. They are intrigued by the version of themselves that emerges in your presence. This is the pinnacle of relational influence: to guide, to shape, to anchor, not through forceful declaration, but through the silent, powerful act of skilled reflection. This is merely the beginning of a different paradigm. A paradigm where strength is cultivated in quietness, where value is derived from depth, not diameter, and where the most powerful connections are built not on mutual exposure, but on mutual respect for unspoken depths. If you are ready to explore this path further, to rebuild your presence with intention, subscribe. The deeper layers of this philosophy await. Share this with one person who needs to hear it today. The journey from reactivity to sovereignty starts with a single shift in perspective.